evade the punches rather than block them, and that could be dangerous. Although he's coming back with decent shots of his own.
Some fights are about titles, others about pride. For Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn, it was personal. From the moment they met, the tension was undeniable. And when they stepped into the ring, it was nothing short of war. This is the story of their rivalry. Be sure to watch this video to the end and don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. Chris Eubank was born on August 8, 1966 in Dulwich, South London. At 2 months old, he moved to Jamaica, where he was raised until the age of 6. Upon returning to England, he lived in various areas of London, including Stoke Newington, Dalston, Hackney, and Peckham, growing up in a challenging environment. Eubank attended multiple schools but struggled with disciplinary issues, being suspended 18 times in 1 year before eventually being expelled. At 16, his father sent him to New York to live with his mother in the South Bronx, where he completed his education and began developing an interest in boxing. Chris Eubank's boxing journey is one of those stories that you don't hear about every day. He didn't just wake up one day and become a star. He had to fight for it, literally. As a teenager, Eubank moved to New York for a fresh start. He trained at the Jerome Boxing Club, following in the footsteps of his older brothers, Peter and Simon, who were already boxing back in England. But for Chris, it wasn't just about throwing punches. It became an obsession. He trained every single day, even working as the gym's caretaker just to afford to stay there. His hard work paid off when he won the Spanish Golden Gloves tournament in 1984 and made it to the semifinals of the bigger Golden Gloves competition at Madison Square Garden when he was just 18 years old. Eubank later wrote that his hunger to succeed in boxing came from wanting to prove himself, especially after feeling like an outcast due to bullying from his brothers. That drive pushed him to turn professional not long after his 19th birthday, making his debut at the Atlantis Hotel and Casino against Tim Brown. But for a while, his fights didn't attract much attention. That changed in 1989. In February of that year, he made headlines by defeating Anthony Logan, a fighter who had nearly beaten the rising star, Nigel Benn. Eubank, now living in Brighton, set his sights on Benn, convinced that he could take him down. His confidence only grew as he kept winning. After a dominant 10-round victory over American journeyman Randy Smith, he won the WBC International title in 1990 against Hugo Corti. Later that year, he pulled off one of the fastest knockouts of his career, taking out Ronaldo dos Santos in just 20 seconds, including the referee's count. At that point, it was clear Chris Eubank wasn't just another fighter. He was on his way to becoming a boxing legend. And now, he was ready to take on his toughest rival, Nigel Benn. Eubank and Benn didn't just dislike each other. They hated each other. And it wasn't just for show. The rivalry was personal, fueled by deep resentment that started before either of them even threw a punch. A perfect example was on the night of their first fight in 1990. Eubank was making his way to the ring, mentally locked in, expecting to hear his signature entrance song, Tina Turner's Simply the Best. But suddenly, the music cut out. Someone, on Benn's team's orders, had pulled the plug on the sound system. For Eubank, this wasn't just a harmless prank. His ring walk was part of his routine, his mindset. Walking out in silence, hearing mostly boos, was an unwelcome distraction right before the biggest fight of his life. He didn't even need to ask for who was responsible. Everyone knew it was Benn. The man was always trying to get under Eubank's skin any way he could. Before their fight, Eubank said that he found Benn intolerable and that he was all hype. Benn shot back and said that he hates his rival, just in case anyone thought that there was any mutual respect. No, their beef wasn't just about boxing, it was personal, deeply personal. And that's exactly why people couldn't afford to miss their very first match against each other. The first fight between Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn was absolute chaos in the best way possible. Right from the opening bell, Eubank tried something unexpected. Instead of feeling out the fight, he ran sideways, turned, and threw a big right hand at Benn, hoping to land a quick knockout. But Benn wasn't fazed. He came forward aggressively, and neither of them wasted time with jabs or cautious punches. They were swinging with bad intentions from the start. They circled each other cautiously, each looking for an opening. Eubank appeared to have the upper hand early on, controlling the pace, but Benn soon shifted his focus, targeting Eubank's lower body. In a sudden burst of power, Benn grabbed and lifted Eubank off his feet. As the first round neared its end, he tried to land a few clean shots, but Eubank's footwork kept him elusive, slipping away from danger. By the second round, the 26-year-old Benn turned up the aggression. Eubank, now settling into his rhythm, responded with sharp, dangerous jabs. Benn ducked several times, but he wasn't fast enough to evade a crushing right hand followed by a precise uppercut. Determined to fight back, Benn surged forward, but there was something unsettling in Eubank's eyes, a glint of bloodlust. Reacting quickly, Eubank shoved him away. Benn took a moment to recover, then charged in once more. But before he could reassert control, he found himself backed into a corner, absorbing a series of headshots. Sensing an opportunity, Eubank became relentless, unleashing a flurry of blows in the final seconds of the round. Desperate to escape, Benn attempted to switch positions, but the bell rang before he could turn the tide. In the third round, the 24-year-old Eubank fought with precision, dodging Benn's attacks while looking to counter with damage of his own. He ducked a strike and fired back with a series of punches that cut through the air, just missing their mark. Then, Benn saw an opening. He forced Eubank into a corner and pressed forward, believing he finally had the advantage. But Eubank refused to be trapped. With fierce determination, he fired back, landing clean shots to Benn's head as he crouched low. The struggle continued until Eubank managed to slip free from the tight spot. As the round neared its end, both men went all in, grappling for control. The tension was electric, but before either could seize the upper hand, the bell sounded, leaving the fight on a knife's edge. By the fourth round, things got brutal. Eubank took a nasty uppercut to the chin when breaking from a clinch, and it split his tongue open. He was swallowing so much blood that he had to hide it from his corner, afraid the fight would be stopped. But Benn wasn't getting away unscathed either. By the next round, his eye was swollen shut. At the start of round 5, Eubank landed the opening hit. However, just as he was beginning to assert his dominance, Benn struck him in the groin, forcing him to step back amid a chorus of boos from the crowd. Seizing the moment, Benn relentlessly pummeled Eubank with powerful body shots. Although Eubank tried to retaliate, Benn skillfully evaded every counterattack. For a brief moment, it appeared that Benn might claim the advantage, but Eubank recovered and landed some solid head punches. Following a brief scramble in which Eubank darted around trying to escape, Benn managed to catch him. With precise timing, Benn unleashed a dangerous jab that sent Eubank crashing to the canvas. Shocked by the unexpected blow, Eubank quickly tried to explain to the referee, clearly unprepared for such an impact. Emboldened by his success, Benn's confidence soared and he launched into a relentless, brutal assault on Eubank. In the 6th round, Eubank started to gain momentum, unloading shots as Benn covered up on the ropes. Then Benn hit him with a low blow, but the referee didn't penalize him. Instead, Benn took full advantage and went to work on Eubank's body, making it a rough, physical fight. Round 7 was a war, and when round 8 began, the fight was still up for grabs. Benn, now a bit more cautious, looked for big overhand shots and short hooks. At one point, he trapped Eubank in the corner and landed a big right hand on the top of his head, knocking him down. Eubank jumped up quickly, insisting it was just a slip, but the referee still gave him an 8 count. The 9th round was just as wild. It was even until Eubank missed with a punch and Benn made him pay with a left hook that sent him down again. Eubank got back up and circled Benn before unloading a combination, including a left hook that staggered Benn badly. Sensing the moment, Eubank went all in. He landed a straight right that sent Benn stumbling into the corner, and with just 5 seconds left in the round, the referee stopped the fight. Eubank had won, but it was one of the most intense, dramatic battles ever seen in a boxing ring. The rivalry between them far from over. Nigel Benn's early boxing career was explosive. From the moment he turned professional in 1987, he was knocking out everyone in his path. He won his first 22 fights, all by knockout. That's not just winning, that's pure domination. In 1988, during this incredible run, he became the Commonwealth middleweight champion by stopping Abdul Umaru in the 2nd round. At that point, he looked unstoppable. Then came Michael Watson. In May 1989, Benn put his Commonwealth title on the line against Watson in what was a massive fight, even making it onto US television. The fight didn't go as planned. Watson was patient and technical, and in the 6th round, he dropped Benn with a simple jab. Benn tried to get up, but the referee counted him out. Just like that, his perfect record was gone. That loss could have broken some fighters, but not Benn. Instead of sulking, he regrouped and fought Jorge Amparo in Atlantic City, his first fight outside the UK. This was also the first time he didn't get a knockout, but he still won on points over 10 rounds. It showed he wasn't just a power puncher, he could box too. From there, he picked up 2 more wins before going after the WBO middleweight title against American Doug DeWitt. The fight was wild. Benn got knocked down in the 2nd round, but he came back strong, dropping DeWitt in the 3rd and then 3 more times in the 8th to win the title. Now a world champion, Benn made his first defense against Aaron Barkley, a former WBC champion. Once again, Benn didn't waste any time. He knocked Barkley down 3 times in the 1st round, forcing the referee to stop the fight. By this point, Benn had built a reputation as one of the most dangerous punchers in the sport. But his biggest test was yet to come. Chris Eubank. As the fight kicked off, both men were tense, testing each other out. You could tell they knew what was at stake. Benn started strong, throwing punches with real intent, while Eubank took a more measured approach, trying to land cleaner shots in the middle of the round. It was close, with some judges calling it even. Eubank seemed to be pot-shotting from the outside, but it wasn't really working. Benn, on the other hand, was the busier fighter, landing solid body shots and pressing forward. He looked like he wanted to make a statement early, but at the same time, Eubank had his moments, landing the sharper punches when he did connect. It was already shaping up to be a back-and-forth battle. As the fight moved on, Benn really started to impose himself. He bobbed and weaved well, made Eubank miss, and landed some heavy left hooks. He was the aggressor, setting the pace, and it seemed like Eubank was struggling to find his rhythm. But Chris wasn't just standing there. When he did let his hands go, he landed clean, sharp punches, especially from the outside. His jab and body shots were keeping him in the fight, even if he wasn't throwing as much as Benn. Then things got rough. Both fighters were having trouble landing cleanly, and frustration started creeping in. Low blows were exchanged. Benn landed one, and Eubank quickly returned the favor. The ref had to step in and warn both of them. But aside from the fouls, Benn's work rate was higher, and that seemed to give him the edge in the scrappy exchanges. Eubank wasn't backing down though. He landed a hard right hand, followed by a slick uppercut. Benn took them well, but was also starting to slip some of Eubank's shots and counter to the body. Some of those counters drifted low, which made things even messier. It was tough to separate them at times. Both guys were having their moments. Then came a big one. Eubank caught Benn with a counter left hook that wobbled him for a moment. It looked like he had the cleaner work earlier in the round, but Benn came storming back in the final minute, landing a heavy right to the side of Eubank's head. The judges were split. Some thought Eubank's sharp work early on won it, while others felt Benn's late surge stole the round. Benn wasn't done yet. He started finding his range with the right hand, landing some solid shots that seemed to shake Eubank. His body work was paying off too, slowing Chris down bit by bit. This was a clear Benn round. He was pressing forward, landing clean, and making Eubank uncomfortable. But Eubank responded. When the next round started, Benn came out aggressively, but he wasn't landing much. Eubank, on the other hand, found his timing and landed some sharp left hooks. Then, as the round went on, he started countering well. Uppercuts, right hands, picking his moments to punish Benn when he got too close. Round 5 was wild. Both men came out swinging, trading shots in the center of the ring. Eubank put together some crisp combinations that seemed to push Benn back. A right-left combo landed flush on Benn's chin, maybe even hurt him a little. Eubank looked in control toward the end of the fight, landing clean and making Benn miss. But Benn was still in it, slipping shots and coming back with heavy counters. Eubank's punches were getting wider and slower, while Benn's were still sharp. At this point, neither man was backing down and the fight was heating up. As the fight pressed on, things got even messier. Benn was deducted a point for low blows, which had been a problem all night. To be fair, it looked like Eubank was pushing his head down when he threw the shot, but the referee had seen enough and took action. That point deduction changed the round. Eubank had been boxing well, using his size and strength, but then Benn came storming back in the final moments, landing some huge power shots. It was a tough one to score. Some judges saw it even, but with the deduction, it ended up swinging Eubank's way. Benn, though, wasn't slowing down. He was still landing the sharper shots, working Eubank's body and finding gaps. Meanwhile, Eubank, usually so composed, looked unsure of how to go after him. He wasn't used to being the aggressor, and it was starting to show. Benn took advantage, landing clean rights and piling up damage to the ribs. It was another strong round for him. And it didn't stop there. Benn kept ripping the body, throwing hard uppercuts and mixing in right hands to the head. Eubank, on the other hand, was missing a lot and constantly holding on the inside. The pressure seemed to be bothering him. At one point, he even tried a sneaky move, acting like he wanted to touch gloves, only to launch a right hand. It backfired. He missed, and Benn made him pay with a left hook. Then came a massive moment. Benn caught Eubank with a huge left hand that had him stumbling. Eubank fired back with an uppercut, but it didn't do much. Every time he managed to land something decent, Benn responded with something heavier. By now, it was clear that Benn was doing the more consistent work while Eubank was struggling to keep up. But heading into the final rounds, fatigue was setting in. Benn wasn't moving as well, and his punches didn't have the same snap. Eubank saw an opening and finally started to put together some offense, tightening up his punches and bringing back his jab. It was his best round in a while, though Benn still managed to land the harder shots. Then, just when it looked like Eubank was fading, he showed why he was so tough to beat. In the final round, Benn came out swinging, almost dropping Eubank with a series of heavy shots. But Chris wasn't going anywhere. He dug deep, throwing sharp combinations and finishing the fight strong. He had been hurt, trapped on the ropes, but he refused to go down. He fought like a man who wouldn't be denied. And when the final bell rang, nobody knew who had won. The fight had been brutal, back and forth, and impossible to call with certainty. The judges' scores reflected that one had it for Eubank, one had it for Benn, and the third had it a draw. Even after their wars in the ring, the tension between Eubank and Benn never truly faded. Their rivalry defined an era, and now their sons, Chris Eubank Jr. and Connor Benn, are set to continue the fight, with their highly anticipated match scheduled for April 26. The legacy lives on. Decades later, people still talk about Eubank versus Benn, not just as a clash between two fighters, but as one of the greatest rivalries in boxing history.